Monday mornings in Manhattan always have two types of people: the awake, polite, ready to start the week type, and the Aurora Lane type. Aurora belonged to the second group, the people who sprint through mornings chewing a sandwich while walking, trying to put on makeup using the phone camera, silently praying life won't throw any more drama at them. But life, of course, didn't listen. Aurora was dashing across the plaza in front of the high-rise when her left shoe betrayed her. It stepped on a pebble, one tiny pebble, yet enough to send the entire universe into slow-motion mode. Her foot slipped. Her sandwich flew out of her hand. Aurora watched, mouth wide open, as her beloved ham and cheese sandwich arced through the air in a perfect cinematic curve. And it landed, right on the head of a man stepping out of a black Cadillac. It didn't fall gently. It didn't fall accidentally. It landed with a full-on thud on his shoulder, then slid down his chest like a deliberate attack. Aurora froze. The man froze. The nearby security guard held his breath. Aurora lunged forward. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I swear. It didn't mean to attack you. It's just an innocent sandwich." The man picked the piece of bread off his suit. He looked at it as if assessing war damage. His suit, black, luxurious, perfectly pressed. The ham and cheese attached to it like a brand new logo. Aurora reached out to snatch the sandwich back, but he lifted his hand slightly, just high enough to stop her in place. He was too tall, too handsome, too clean to be the victim of a $1.99 breakfast. His voice was deep, low, calm, but strangely dangerous. "It didn't attack me, but I think it hates me," Aurora choked. "I'm sorry, I was rushing and tripped, and nice sandwich combo." He looked at his suit, then at her. "Are you planning to compensate me?" Aurora nearly screamed. "Compensate what? It's a cheap sandwich." He raised an eyebrow. "My suit isn't. $4,000. "Sorry, what? 4,000? Aurora choked again. "Is it made of gold?" He looked at her like she was some rare creature that had fallen from Mars. Then he gave a very small smile, tiny but enough to shut down Aurora's entire brain. "It's fine. I'll send you the invoice." Aurora stared. "How are you going to send it? You don't even know who I am. This building has over 2,000 employees, but only one person threw a sandwich at my head at 8 a.m. Aurora sputtered. He walked past her, the scent of expensive cologne trailing behind him. She turned away, ready to run for her life, because she assumed she'd never see him again. But just as she stepped into the lobby, the security guard bowed slightly. "Good morning, Mr. West." Aurora froze. Her mouth hung open like a fish without oxygen. "West, Mr. West, Damian West, CEO Damian West, the new CEO of her company." She nearly needed oxygen. He turned back, still with that dangerous smile, and said, "I'll see you in the office." Aurora hadn't even formed a question before Damian stepped into the revolving door, his silhouette disappearing into the golden lobby light. She stood there thinking, fantastic. It's Monday morning, and I've already assaulted the CEO with food and owe him a $4,000 suit. Lauren texted, "Where are you?" Aurora replied, "Ground floor, considering moving to Mexico to escape debt." At that moment, Aurora had no idea that. Damian West wasn't angry. He wasn't upset. He wasn't even annoyed. He was simply intrigued. A girl bold enough to throw a sandwich at a CEO wearing a $4,000 suit? No, this wasn't an accident. This was messy, beautiful destiny. He stepped into the elevator, touched the faint smear of cheese on his suit, and smiled faintly. For the first time in years, his Monday morning wasn't boring anymore. "Hello, Soul Stories fam. We're starting a new love journey. Tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and join our family. Now stay with us." The story begins. The West Corp building towered over the center of Manhattan, gleaming under the sunlight like a silver sword stabbed straight into the sky. Inside, the grand lobby smelled of freshly roasted coffee, echoing with the rhythmic click of high heels on marble floors. A very New York version of a Monday morning. Aurora Lane walked in, her back straight but her soul trembling like a soaked puppy in the rain. Today was the 4th day since the sandwich incident, but to Aurora, It felt like she had lived 3 lifetimes under the weight of that humiliation. She could still see her ham and cheese sandwich soaring through the air every time she closed her eyes. She even dreamt last night that the cheese slice sued her for assaulting the CEO. And so, Aurora developed her own survival strategy: avoid. Avoid him so intensely that if Damian West were Wi-Fi, she'd gladly live offline forever. For an entire week, Aurora successfully evaded Damian, using every survival skill available to a broke but highly imaginative office worker. Heard expensive leather shoes echoing down the hallway, immediately sat on the floor behind her desk and pretended to tie her shoelaces. Spotted a 6-foot 2-inch silhouette reflected on the glass wall, dove straight into the women's restroom, whether or not she actually needed to. Walking past the 43rd floor hallway and caught a whiff of familiar woody cologne, hid behind a monstera plant half her height. The monstera plant was Aurora's best friend that week. Lauren, her best friend and department mate, nearly broke her spine laughing every time she caught Aurora in the act. Lauren patted her shoulder consolingly, though her voice clearly betrayed restrained laughter. "You threw food at the CEO and you still show up to work in a cute dress? I respect your courage." Aurora pressed a hand to her chest. "I'm broke, Lauren, truly broke. I need my health insurance. I have credit card debt. I don't have options." Lauren put her hands on her hips. "Then face him. If you keep running, security will have to open a new bulletin board. Warning, brown-haired girl constantly fleeing inside the building." Aurora shook her head with conviction. "No, I choose life, and life means hiding." Meanwhile, while Aurora treated him like a final boss in a video game, Damian West remained perfectly calm. In the main conference room, he sat at the head of the table, white dress shirt crisp, navy tie immaculate, black hair styled in that clean business class look. The morning sun lit the sharp line of his jaw, making his features even more striking. He looked like the kind of CEO who'd go viral on TikTok if he ever opened an account. But what made everyone hold their breath was this. Damian was smiling softly, a rare, subtle smile that appeared every time Aurora came into view, then disappeared instantly. On the third day, during a strategic meeting, Damian was reviewing a report when he accidentally looked up. And to his left, a small head peeked up from behind a laptop. Aurora was watching him like a quail watching a tiger. He raised an eyebrow. Aurora panicked and ducked out of sight, disappearing faster than a light switch being flipped. Lauren, sitting next to her, rubbed her eyes and whispered, "You're beyond saving, Aurora." Damian twirled his pen between his fingers, the corner of his mouth lifting into a tiny curve. Aurora Lane was more interesting than he expected. That afternoon, Aurora hid inside the break room on the 42nd floor, the one hardly anyone used, so she wouldn't be found. She opened her herbal tea box, poured hot water into a cup, and told herself, "If I can avoid him until Friday, I will survive." The thought wasn't even complete when a deep voice sounded behind her. "Miss Lane." Aurora jolted and spun around. The tea box fell. The tea bag shot into the air. Hot water splashed onto the floor, and Aurora froze like her emotional circuit had been unplugged. Damian West stood there, a white dress shirt with sleeves rolled up exactly 2 folds, paired with a refined Patek watch on his wrist. His warm amber eyes looked at her with a hint of amusement. Aurora panicked. "Oh my God!" Damian crossed his arms, tilting his head slightly. "I'm still waiting for the sandwich invoice." Aurora nearly shouted. "You actually want me to pay? I'll compensate you, but not right now. I don't have the money." Damian stepped closer, his voice soft yet razor sharp. "No." He stopped right in front of her, only inches away, close enough that Aurora smelled the familiar woody cologne that sent her heart into a 4-beat meltdown. "I just want you to stop avoiding me." The sentence froze her completely. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a reprimand. It sounded almost like a small confession. Even Damian himself couldn't explain why he paid attention to this clumsy girl so much. Maybe it was the sandwich. Maybe it was her panicked eyes. Maybe it was the way she dodged him like he could steal her soul. But one thing was certain. He had noticed her, and he wasn't planning to stop. Aurora swallowed, face turning as red as a tangerine. "You mean that?" Damien looked at her for a very long second. What do you think? Aurora spiraled into panic, grabbed her tea box off the floor, and bolted out of the room like the wind. Damien watched her go, the corner of his mouth curving upward. For the first time in years, he found himself drawn in uncontrollably. Friday mornings at Westcorp were always busier than usual, the smell of freshly ground espresso mixing with buttery croissants. The clatter of hurried footsteps as office workers rushed to the weekly briefing. The rhythm of keyboards blends with soft laughter near the pantry. Aurora Lane walked in, looking like she was about to testify in court. She wore a simple cream floral dress, paired with a pastel blue cardigan, like a broke but determined version of a New York muse. Her ponytail was tied high, a few loose strands framing her wary brown eyes. Today's mission, survive another day without running into Damien West. Just thinking of him made her stomach twist into a silk knot. Partly from embarrassment, mostly because he was outrageously handsome. Lauren, Aurora's ever-cheerful partner in crime, was already at the coffee counter, pouring herself a cup. When she spotted Aurora, her grin curved so wide her eyelids practically arched. Still alive, Sandwich Slayer? Aurora smacked her friend lightly on the shoulder. Keep your voice down. If he hears that, I'm doomed. Lauren gave her a once-over. You can't live like this forever, girl. You're hiding like someone on the FBI's most wanted list. Aurora sighed, clutching her coffee cup with both hands like a sacred charm. It's not that I want to hide, but that man, Damien West, is dangerously attractive. Too cold, too perfect, too untouchable. Lauren raised a brow. And Aurora waved a hand, sounding absolutely sure of herself. And men who look like that, 6'2", wearing Italian suits straight out of GQ, smelling like fancy sandalwood, are either married, taken, or... She lowered her voice, whispering like she was revealing a state secret. Gay. Lauren nearly snorted coffee out of her nose, trying not to laugh. What is wrong with you? Aurora tossed her hair, dead serious. I'm just being realistic. Don't ask why I worry. If he's straight, then... She clutched her chest dramatically. Then I'm doomed. It was classic Aurora. Too honest, too dramatic, too hopelessly bold. Lauren chuckled. You're a walking rom-com, you know that? Aurora shrugged. Think about it. If a straight, flawless, aloof, heartbreakingly gorgeous man walks by, so gorgeous he could microwave my heart with a glance, that's a cardiovascular disaster waiting to happen. Lauren was about to reply when... Silence. Both froze. The air turned horror movie still. Lauren's eyes widened. She mouthed, Don't! Turn! Around! A chill ran down Aurora's spine. She turned anyway, and saw him. Damien West, the CEO of Westcorp, stood right next to the espresso machine, cup in hand, amber eyes fixed directly on her. In that instant, Aurora felt her soul plummet 10 floors. He was tall, calm, and devastatingly composed, his white shirt hugging broad shoulders, a pale gray tie perfectly aligned. His dark hair was neatly combed, a few strands falling forward just enough to make him look like a Netflix lead. He said nothing, no anger, no frown, just looked. The kind of look that made Aurora wish she could evaporate into coffee steam. She stood frozen, unable to swallow, her throat as dry as the Sahara. Lauren quietly turned toward the fridge like she could teleport to another dimension. Damien set his cup on the counter. Slowly, deliberately. The soft click echoed louder than it should have. Then he stepped forward. Each stride was measured, steady, and lethally calm. Aurora instinctively backed up half a step, her heart pounding like the Super Bowl halftime drums. He stopped right in front of her, leaned slightly down to meet her gaze. His eyes, deep, steady, and faintly amused, held hers. Then he spoke, his voice low, warm, perfectly controlled. Next time you're curious about my personal life, he paused, tilting his head just enough for her to notice the sweep of his lashes. Ask me directly. Aurora turned to stone. She didn't know whether to apologize, cry, or flee down Fifth Avenue. Behind her, Lauren looked like she was silently reciting a prayer for salvation. Damien held her gaze one beat longer, a second so stretched it felt like he was reading her every thought. Then he stepped back, picked up his cup again, and walked away. No further comment, no lecture, just the faint trail of his expensive sandalwood cologne lingering in the air. A scent that made Aurora want to bang her head against the wall in pure humiliation. He left as if the most awkward moment in company history hadn't just happened. Aurora stood there, eyes wide, looking like a drenched cat. Lauren rushed over, patting her shoulder like comforting a survivor. "Aurora, my dear, you just dug your own grave." Aurora wheezed like she'd run a marathon. "I'm dead, officially dead. Goodbye, cruel world." Lauren shook her head. "You know," he didn't seem angry. Actually, she squinted mischievously. "He kind of looked interested." Aurora fired back instantly. "Interested, my foot? I just called him gay. To his face. Who in their right mind?" Lauren interrupted, grinning. "He actually smiled." Aurora blinked. Uh, what?" Lauren nodded firmly. "He turned away, but I swear his lips curved." Aurora's jaw dropped. "You're kidding." Lauren folded her arms, analyzing. "Girl, whatever you do, you stand out. You made him laugh, or?" Aurora sputtered. "I called him gay." Lauren sighed. "Exactly. That's why it's funny." Meanwhile, as Damien stepped into the elevator, the doors closed, and his reflection stared back from the mirror panel. His lips curved again. Not angry, not offended, not even annoyed, just entertained. No one in this company ever spoke about him that way. No one ever dared to draw such absurd conclusions. And certainly no one had made him laugh, quietly, genuinely, after years of perfect discipline. Aurora Lane, the clumsy, blunt, evasive girl who hid from him like he was a tax audit, had just become the most intriguing anomaly in his meticulously controlled world. Damien leaned back against the elevator wall, the faint smile still there. "Gay, huh?" For the first time in a long while, he found himself wanting to know more about someone. The 43rd floor of Westcorp, after hours, looked like a quieter version of New York. Dimmed electronic boards, tidy desks, neatly stacked file folders, and warm yellow lights reflecting off the glass walls that mirrored the city coming alive at dusk. Aurora Lane stood in front of the CEO's office door, hugging a hot cup of coffee like it was her own fate. The cup had a white lid with the words, "Sorry for everything," written in marker. Only after writing it did she realize it looked exactly like a confession letter from a crime drama. Aurora took a deep breath. Today she had decided to be a grown adult. Living like a ninja was stressing her conscience too much. She nudged her own shoulder. "Be strong, Aurora Lane. He's just a CEO. CEOs are people too. People drink coffee, sleep, eat, breathe, and can forgive." The problem was, that person was Damien West, 6'2", handsome enough to sue in the Supreme Court for causing employee heart palpitations, cold, mysterious, and most importantly, he had heard her say, "He's definitely gay." She pushed open his office door. Damien's office was wide, minimalist, and luxuriously modern in that New York way. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the glowing Manhattan skyline, a walnut desk. Warm golden lighting falling over his suit, air so expensive that Aurora felt like taking a deep breath would cost part of her paycheck. Damien stood by the window, one hand in his pocket, staring down at the city as if he were considering buying a few more buildings. He turned around, and those amber eyes landed on Aurora. She froze. Now, her hands tightened around the coffee cup like it was her last source of life. "Mr. West, I brought coffee." He didn't answer. He just looked. Looked long enough that Aurora could practically smell her own anxiety. She grimaced. "To make up for things, I want to apologize for everything that came out of my mouth yesterday." Damien stepped toward her. 2 steps. 3. The distance between them collapsed like a slow-motion scene in a movie. Aurora instinctively backed up, only stopping when her back hit the edge of the small meeting table behind her. Damien took the coffee. He didn't drink it, didn't look at it. He just looked at her. Long, So long she started wondering if she had lettuce stuck in her teeth or her mascara was smudged. Her chest rose and fell lightly with nerves. He remained silent, calm, eyes studying her like she was a secret he hadn't prepared for. Aurora felt her heartbeat stumble. I really am sorry. Damien set the coffee cup down on the table behind her, very slowly. Then he lifted his hand. Aurora jolted, her eyes widening like a startled fawn. But his hand stopped at her cheeks. He cupped her face gently with both hands. Warm, steady, and intentionally dangerous, before Aurora could even form a thought. Damien leaned in and kissed her. Not gentle, not testing, not polite like a may I kiss, but deep, strong, decisive, as if everything he had been holding back all week poured into that single moment. Aurora let out a tiny sound, somewhere between surprise and melting. One of his hands slid to the back of her neck, the other stayed on her cheek, as if afraid she might disappear if he didn't hold her close. His breath mixed with hers, warm, tinged with cinnamon and that signature woody cologne. Aurora felt every nerve short-circuit. Her fingers instinctively grabbed his suit lapel, tugging lightly. Damien pulled her closer. He kissed her like he had been waiting for this exact second. Fierce but not reckless, intense yet fully controlled. Aurora's knees weakened, the floor seeming to shift under her feet. The entire room went silent. No employees, no photocopier, no keyboard clicks, just the two of them, and a kiss that made the whole world pause. When Damien finally pulled back slowly, Aurora could barely breathe. Her lips trembled. Her cheeks burned like someone had dunked her in a frying pan. Damien leaned in, his mouth close to her ear, his voice low enough to send vibrations straight down her spine. Now you know I'm not gay. Aurora stayed frozen, her mind wiped blank, body trembling like a drenched cat, but not hating the feeling at all. He stepped back half a step, calm, as if nothing earth-shattering had just happened. Then he picked up the coffee she brought. Thank you for the coffee. And he walked away. No glance back. But his woody cologne lingered, like an invisible announcement. Aurora stood there for 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then she inhaled sharply as if someone coming up for air. Oh my God! I'm actually dead! Aurora opened the door and stepped out. She didn't look terrible, but she certainly didn't look normal. Slightly messy hair, lips redder than usual, ears blazing like they'd been pressed against a hot grill, eyes dreamy like her central nervous system had been stunned. Lauren was leaning against the photocopier. The moment she saw Aurora, she dropped her muffin on the floor. Oh my God, Aurora Lane! What just happened in there? Aurora covered her face. Lauren! Lauren rushed over like a detective interrogating a suspect. Did he fire you? Yell at you? Did you cry? Or? Aurora shook her head vigorously. No, worse. Lauren held her breath. Worse? Aurora whispered like confessing a federal crime. He kissed me. Lauren froze. Then, what? Aurora sputtered. I'm going to die, Lauren. Lauren grabbed her shoulders. No, you're not dying. You're becoming a REROMCOM female lead. That's completely different. Aurora collapsed onto the photocopier. Oh God, I'm doomed. At the end of the hallway, Damien stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut. He remained composed, yet the corner of his mouth curved ever so slightly. He hadn't kissed her impulsively. He kissed her because he had wanted to for a long time. And he knew. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the Westcourt building glowed under the first light of day. Employees flowed in like a steady current, bringing with them laughter, greetings by the elevator, and the rhythmic tapping of heels on marble floors. Aurora Lane, however, walked in like someone about to go on the run. Her hair was tied tight, her shirt a size too big to blend in, her head bowed to her phone screen like a spy trying to disguise herself as a nameless extra in a documentary. She had just been kissed by her CEO the night before. KISSED, really kissed. Deeply kissed. The full Hollywood deluxe kind of kiss. She was supposed to feel special, swept off her feet, high on serotonin. But Aurora Lane was Aurora Lane. All she could think was, I'm about to get fired. Lauren, who only needed a single glance to assess any disaster, took one look inside. You look like you just entered witness protection. Aurora hugged her laptop as if it were her last will and testament. I I think he's going to fire me because he kissed me. I don't know. There must be a law against this. I'm about to lose my health insurance. My life is over. Lauren exhaled, resting a hand on her shoulder. Aurora, you're not losing your job. You're losing your sanity. Aurora instantly ducked behind a wooden column when a tall figure passed by. Lauren frowned. That's not Damien. That's the lobby security guard. Aurora whispered urgently like a spy sharing classified intel. I'm avoiding every man over 6 feet tall, just to be safe. Aurora thought hiding would make Damien forget what happened. Wrong. Dead wrong. Monumentally wrong. Damien West, handsome CEO, cold on the surface but dangerously warm underneath, the kind of man whose existence alone should be a felony, started showing up more often. He walked past her desk at least 3 times every morning. Each time, the silence that followed was perilous. He stood behind her, pretending to review a report, but really he was watching her panic. And then came the unnecessary questions. Ms. Lane, did you send that email to accounting? He'd been CC'd. He'd read it. He'd even replied. Ms. Lane, is it hot in here today? Aurora almost blurted, no, it's just you standing too close. Ms. Lane, I think your keyboard looks old. A reason no one, least of all him, believed. Aurora was both terrified and trembling in an entirely unprofessional manner. Every time Damien came near, her heart turned into an unsolicited hip-hop dancer. The office began to notice. Curious looks started floating around. Little whispers bloomed like wildfire. Hey, that girl on 43? The CEO keeps standing by her desk. Why's her face always red? Something's up, right? Some kind of drama. Aurora wanted to evaporate. That day she tried to sneak out early. But life, of course, had other plans. The conference room on the 43rd floor suddenly needed updated paperwork. Sarah, the department director, asked Aurora to drop the files off for Mr. West to sign in the morning. Aurora trembled like a leaf in a storm, but still carried the folder in. The room was quiet, the long table glowing under soft light. Cool air from the vents, city lights glittering across the glass walls. New York shimmered like a secret. She placed the documents on the table. When she turned around, Damien was standing at the door. Aurora froze, heart thudding painfully. I was just dropping these off. He studied her for a long moment. His gaze was deep, unreadable, steady, his expression calm, but something underneath was shifting. He stepped inside and closed the door. Click. Aurora swallowed hard. Mr. West. Miss Lane. He took a slow step closer, close enough that she could smell his signature sandalwood cologne. Why are you avoiding me? Aurora's eyes widened. Avoiding? No, I was just taking a strategic route to minimize human contact. Damien's lips curved slightly, just enough to ruin her composure. He placed one hand on the table behind her, the other slipping casually into his pocket. It wasn't threatening. It was slow, deliberate, CEO cornering in luxury mode. You think I kissed you out of impulse? Aurora's heart made an alarming thump. No, I kissed you, he said, leaning in just enough that she couldn't look away. Because I wanted to. Aurora's knees wobbled. The air around her grew heavy, so thick she had to inhale just to keep standing. His next words, low and smooth as velvet, ran right down her spine. And I still do. Aurora could barely breathe. Mr. West, Damien, he corrected her, quietly, firmly, like an unspoken invitation. Between them, silence pulsed, charged, fragile, and undeniable. Something warm, something powerful, something completely beyond logic. She looked at him. He looked at her. It wasn't confusion anymore. It wasn't a random kiss. It was an attraction, unavoidable, unmistakable. and neither of them wanted to end it. Damien leaned closer, close enough that their breaths mingled. Stop running! Aurora's heart felt like a trembling spring. I'm scared, he whispered. So am I, but I still want to. His eyes locked with hers, and in that moment Aurora knew one thing with absolute clarity. Some people aren't meant to be run from. Some connections aren't meant to be avoided. And Damien West, intimidating, magnetic, unreadable, and dangerously real, was the kind of man whose gravity could change the direction of her entire heart. Monday morning. As Westcorp's office doors opened, New York sunlight streamed through the glass walls, creating golden streaks across the floor. Aurora had just set her bag down when the familiar sound of leather shoes. She held her breath. No need to turn. She knew exactly who it was. Damien West appeared beside her desk. The full Swiss watch commercial CEO aesthetic. Charcoal gray suit perfectly tailored, navy tie, hair slightly tousled in that seductive Manhattan wind-blessed-me way. Aurora wanted to crawl under her desk. Miss Lane. His voice was deep, calm, but his eyes darker than a double-shot espresso. Yes, sir. Damien didn't waste time. This Friday, I have a business meeting in Miami. 3 days. I want you to come with me. Aurora froze, her brain loaded 1%, 2%, then crashed entirely. I go. Where again? Damien repeated slowly, each word distinct. Come. With me. To Miami. She swallowed. Then she activated her survival instincts. Aurora shook her head rapidly. I'm allergic to airplanes. Damien frowned. Allergic to airplanes? Yes, I sneeze every time I think about airports. Damien crossed his arms, voice very soft. Next, I have to water my plants. You use fake plants. Aurora choked. Oh, right. She thought fast. I also have to walk my dog. You don't have a dog, Aurora muttered. Maybe an imaginary one. Damien stared at her for 3 seconds, completely defeated. She kept going, desperate. I get dizzy when I see the ocean. Miami isn't asking you to swim. I also have a dentist appointment. Your appointment is next month. I dash. Damien cut her off with one simple sentence. He leaned in slightly, amber eyes locking onto her brown ones. Miss Lane. Aurora froze. You're coming. He paused, lowered his voice, warm and sincere. Not because I'm your boss, but because I want you there. The words hit Aurora like someone touching her heart directly. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her cheeks warmed. Her logic dissolved into smoke. Finally, Aurora nodded weakly. Okay. Damien gave a small smile, one of those rare solar eclipse once-a-year smiles. Good, 7 a.m. Friday, private jet. Aurora. Private? What? Friday morning, Aurora arrived at Teterboro Airport, staring at the Westcorp private jet with her mouth open like a window. Inside, everything gleamed. Cream leather seats, walnut tables, a cabin scented with soft vanilla and amber wood. Aurora sat down carefully, afraid she might damage a national treasure. Damien sat across from her, closed his laptop, and looked at her. You okay? Aurora nodded shakily. This seat is too soft. I feel guilty sitting on it. Damien let out a quiet laugh. Relax, it's meant to be sat on. She grabbed her seatbelt, hands trembling. Damien leaned in to help buckle it. The distance, too close. His breath, too warm. Her heart, too fragile. She turned away, pretending to look at the clouds. He looked at her, not pretending at all. Miami glowed gold under the tropical afternoon sun. The Blue Horizon Hotel, 5 stars, luxurious, its white marble lobby sparkling under a massive chandelier like a suspended galaxy. Aurora stood in her room, staring at the ocean view balcony, feeling like she had stepped into someone else's life. She poked the pillow. This is softer than my emotional stability. Next door, Damien loosened his tie, standing by the window overlooking the ocean. One thought filled his mind. This girl makes me want to break all my rules. That evening, Damien took Aurora to a fundraising gala. She wore a soft teal dress, her hair in loose waves, lips glossy and delicate. She looked like the sweetest version of herself. Damien stared long enough that Aurora turned red. Do I have something on my face? No. He tilted his head slightly. You just look beautiful. She wanted to disappear through the floor. Inside the gala, warm lights glowed. Soft jazz filled the air. Guests clinked champagne glasses and chatted elegantly. Women in stunning gowns approached Damien, smiling flirtatiously, lightly touching his arm. Aurora stood beside him, trying to look normal. 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 She was not normal. A tiny, adorable spark of jealousy fizzed inside her like a soda bubble. Damien was talking to a blonde businesswoman when his eyes searched for Aurora. When he noticed her gripping her fruit punch cup a little too tightly, he excused himself and walked over. Aurora. What? Voice half a pitch higher from jealousy. Damien leaned down to her ear, very softly but hot enough to feel dangerous. If you're jealous, just say so. Aurora choked. Uh, I am not. He watched her, a slow smile spreading, beautiful and with a hint of danger. I like it. Aurora's heart bounced. Boing, like a spring pulled too hard. She turned away, hiding her burning ears. Damien looked at her with a kind of fascination that made him want to pull her into a dark corner and kiss her again. And in that very moment, Aurora realized she was stepping into Damien's world, and she liked it more than she dared admit. Soft jazz floated through the air, each note falling onto the marble floor like drops of gold. Above, a massive crystal chandelier scattered light into 1,000 glimmering shards. The charity gala in Miami looked like a scene pulled straight out of a modern romantic film, so breathtaking that Aurora felt like she didn't belong in it. But Damien West was standing beside her, so close she could feel his presence in every breath she took. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at her, the kind of look that made her swallow hard because her heart couldn't keep up with her body. Then Damien extended his hand, palm open, waiting, confident, gentle, but commanding. Aurora. His voice was low, warm, laced with the faint trace of whiskey from earlier. Dance with me. Aurora glanced around, the couples gliding gracefully on the floor, gowns twirling softly under the light. She shook her head slightly, shy. I don't know how to dance. Damien stepped half a pace closer, his breath brushing her cheek. I'll lead. And just that was enough to turn her knees into water. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, firm, steady, like they could pull her out of any fear. Damien's hand settled on her waist, light but certain. His fingertips grazed the satin fabric of her dress, sending a spark straight up her spine. Her heart did a wild, unapproved leap. The music slowed. She followed his lead, awkwardly at first, her steps uneven. Damien lowered his head, his voice brushing her ear. Slow down, feel it, don't count. Aurora looked up and met his gaze. That gaze, warm, deep, holding something she'd never seen directed at her before. For the first time since she arrived in Miami, she didn't feel out of place. She didn't feel small. She didn't feel swallowed by the glittering world around her. Because Damien's hand was holding her, guiding her, choosing her. Their bodies moved together in rhythm, close and in sync. Aurora could feel his heartbeat through his shirt, steady, strong. Damien didn't look away, not even for a second. You know something? He murmured. Since that night at the office, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Aurora missed a step, her breath catching. Damien! He leaned in, pressing his forehead lightly against hers, soft like a quiet confession. Don't run from me anymore. Her heart clenched, not painfully, but tenderly, achingly alive. The gala ended late. The ocean breeze carried the salt of the sea and the faint chill of Miami's night air. Damien and Aurora walked side by side through the lobby of the Blue Horizon Hotel. Elegant, hushed, nearly empty, except for a few staff on night duty. The golden light stretched across the floor, reflecting their shadows, two figures side by side, but closer than ever. Aurora's heartbeat had been unsteady since the dance. She tried to keep a distance, but Damien walked close enough that his hand brushed hers. Accidentally, yet it was enough to send a shiver through her entire body. The elevator doors slid open. No one else inside. Aurora stepped in first. Damien followed. The metal doors closed behind them. When the soft ding echoed, the silence between them grew heavy. Too close, too still, too dangerous. Aurora turned, about to say something, anything to break the tension. But Damien was already moving. He raised his hand, tilting her chin gently upward. Aurora looked up. His eyes burned quietly. No composure, no distance. Only desire. Raw, steady, undeniable. And then Damien kissed her. It wasn't like any kiss Aurora had ever known. No hesitation, no restraint, no space left for reason, just the two of them, and a feeling far too powerful to resist. He drew her close, his hand firm at her waist, holding her as if afraid she might vanish. The kiss deepened, hungry, electric, honest, filled with all the words he'd never said. Aurora responded instinctively with everything in her heart. No hiding, no running, no fear. She could taste the warmth of him, the sincerity, the vulnerability he never let anyone else see. The elevator kept moving, but for them, time stopped. When the doors finally opened on their floor, Damien didn't let go. He took her hand and led her down the quiet hallway. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The air between them carried everything words couldn't hold. They stopped in front of her room. Aurora turned to face him. Cheeks flushed, lips trembling slightly, eyes bright as if she'd just stepped into a world she never knew existed. Damien reached up, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His voice was low, rough around the edges. "Tonight, I don't want you to walk away from me." Aurora looked up, her heart thudding deep and fast. Damien leaned close, his breath brushing her ear. "Only if you want it too." And she understood. That night they stopped running. No more walls. No more fear is strong enough to hold them back. Just two hearts that had already come too far to turn around. The rest of the night was theirs, sweet, deep, tender, warm, and it belonged only to them. Morning in Miami began with honey-warm sunlight and the soft sound of waves brushing against the glass windows. But inside the suite at the Blue Horizon Hotel, Aurora Lane lay in bed, opened her eyes and panicked. Truly panicked. Last night's memories crashed over her like a hurricane. The dance beneath the crystal lights, the elevator, the kiss of Damien's breath, their heartbeats sinking, and the realization that she couldn't hide anymore. Aurora yanked the blanket over her head. "Oh no, I'm done. I'm completely done. My career is over." She shot up, grabbing her head. "I slept with the CEO. I slept with the CEO. HR is going to hang me on the flagpole." She ran her fingers through her hair, cheeks burning like she'd just run a marathon. Aurora made a decision. She had to hide. Not from her feeling, but from Damien West, the man whose single glance could melt her like chocolate left in the sun. She slipped out of his bed, rushed back to her room, shut the door, locked it from inside, threw the blanket over herself, and prayed Damien would think she evaporated into thin air. Meanwhile, Damien West stood in his room, one hand braced on the table, eyes fixed on the endless Miami blue. His hair was slightly tousled, his shirt only half buttoned, but what unsettled him wasn't his appearance. It was a new kind of fear, because for the first time in his life, he was afraid a woman would regret being with him. Afraid Aurora would wake up and think of him as a mistake. Afraid she'd pull away. Afraid she'd vanish. Damien was not the type to fear, but this morning he knew one truth clearly. He'd fallen in love with her somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, and now he didn't want to lose her. He wanted to walk next door, knock, say something, anything to keep her close, but he was also scared of pushing her too far. And for the first time in many years, the cold CEO of West Corp was as unsure as a young boy in love. The private jet ride back to New York was wrapped in glass-thin silence. Aurora sat on the left, staring at the clouds. Damien sat on the right, staring at her. Aurora avoided his eyes. Her heart thumped like it wanted to escape her chest. Damien opened his mouth to say something, then shut it. Fear of losing her held back every word. And Aurora? She clenched her hands together, imagining HR writing an email titled, Meeting Regarding Internal Policy Violation. She stole a glance at him. Damien was looking down at his hands, a rare, unmistakable anxiety softening his features. Aurora felt dizzy. Damien West was nervous. The plane landed. No one spoke. Both were afraid, but for completely different reasons. The 43rd floor of Westcorp was always bright at 6 p.m., but today Aurora found the lights more intimidating than usual. She rushed to her desk, trying to hide behind her computer like an invisible employee. She had no intention of seeing Damien. She couldn't. One glance at him and her heart would be done for. But just as she tried to bury herself in her inbox, Aurora! Damien appeared at her desk, not in his perfect black suit, not polished like every other day. Today he wore no tie, his sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly messy from the wind, an image that completely destroyed her rationality. Aurora shot up like a student caught sleeping in class. I'm working very hard, extremely hard. Damien looked at her for a long time, a very long time. Then he said a sentence that made her heart drop to the floor. Can we talk? Aurora stepped back. I don't know if I should. Please. His voice was low, soft, not a command, a request. Aurora's heartbeat weakened. He turned and gestured for her to follow him into a small meeting room, one rarely used at this hour. Inside, the room was quiet, warm light falling across Damien's face, revealing a tension he rarely showed. He stood across from her, hands in his pockets, shoulders broad as if holding himself together. Aurora? He spoke slowly. I can't pretend nothing happened. Aurora's heart slammed inside her chest. Damien! He stepped closer. I can't go back to how things were. I can't treat you like any other employee. And I don't want to. Another step. Now only a breath separated them. Damien looked directly at her. No defenses, no walls. I'm in love with you. Aurora froze. All sound outside faded. Damien's voice was soft but steady. I love you. I know it's too soon, too fast, but it's the truth. Aurora wanted to say something, anything, but her throat tightened. Damien continued. I know you're scared. Scared of losing your job, scared of what people will say, scared everything will change. He gently touched her wrist, a slow, warm, reassuring touch. And I'm scared of losing you. Aurora felt heat prickling behind her eyes, not from sadness, but because no one had ever spoken to her with such painfully honest sincerity. Damien lowered his voice. I don't want you running from me anymore, but if you want to stop, I'll step back. Aurora looked at him and saw everything. Strength, vulnerability, truth, in a fear he never let anyone else see. She took a breath. Her voice was small but clear. I am scared. Damien nodded, eyes softening. I know. Aurora looked straight at him. But I don't want to run anymore. Damien's heart jolted. Aurora stepped closer, her brown eyes trembling lightly. I don't know where this will go, but I want to try. Damien smiled, a small, beautiful smile that made Aurora feel her heart melting into liquid. He took her hand and squeezed gently. Then we face this together. No running. Aurora nodded, and in that quiet room, two hearts filled with fear moved toward each other anyway, unsure of the path ahead, but certain of one thing. They chose each other. No more running, no more hiding. Choose and step forward. New York, 8:30 a.m. Aurora Lane had barely set her tote bag on the desk for 30 seconds when she realized something was off. A few coworkers were sneaking glances at her, up and down, then whispering behind their mugs. Lauren sighed. Oh no, it started. Aurora frowned. What started? Lauren leaned closer, lowering her voice. The rumor that you seduced the CEO to get that Miami trip. Aurora nearly dropped her glass of water. What? Lauren crossed her arms, furious. Yeah, apparently some people think an ordinary assistant doesn't just get invited on a VIP business trip for no reason. Aurora wanted to sink into the floor. She'd only gone to take notes. Miami had been a professional accident, and that kiss, a heart accident. But gossip spreads faster than wildfire in an open office. Grace Cunningham, the PR director, sharp, powerful, and notoriously terrifying, walked past Aurora's desk, her Louboutins clicking in a rhythm that sounded like authority itself. Grace's eyes flicked toward Aurora, her lips curling into a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. Miami must have been beautiful, huh? The disdain in her tone was as sharp as glass. Aurora wanted to defend herself, but Lauren jumped in first. Aurora was there for work, Grace. You've got it wrong. Grace chuckled softly. Oh, of course. I'm sure those work trips come with all kinds of perks. Each word sliced clean and cold. Aurora's cheeks flushed with humiliation. Lauren squeezed her hand under the desk so she wouldn't cry. Aurora had no idea that Grace had liked Damien for years, ever since he'd been vice president at their parent company in Chicago. Grace had imagined that when Damien transferred to New York, she would be the one by his side, supporting him, impressing him. But Damien had never looked at her that way. Now some ordinary, unremarkable contract assistant had gone on a trip with him and, according to rumor, had been favored. It felt like a slap in the face. At 10 a.m., Rachel, the HR director, entered Damien's office with a worried expression. Damien, there's something you need to know. He looked up, calm but alert. Go ahead. Rachel took a deep breath. There's a rumor circulating about Aurora Lane. People are saying she seduced you to get that Miami assignment. The air went still. Damien set his pen down, sitting straighter, slowly, deliberately. Who started it? Rachel swallowed. We don't know yet, but it's spreading fast. Damien stood up, loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. His face hardened, eyes dark as the ocean floor. Call PR, HR, and legal now. Rachel hesitated. She'd never seen him like this. The conference room on the 45th floor lit up bright. PR, HR, and legal managers filled every seat. Grace walked in a minute late, still smiling confidently, as if nothing concerned her. Damien started the meeting with a single slide projected behind him. Zero tolerance policy for defamation and workplace harassment. His voice was low, clipped, and absolute. Effective immediately, every rumor about Aurora Lane stops. Now. Grace gave a soft, mocking laugh. Oh, Damien. Rumors are just rumors. You can't control what people say behind closed doors. Damien cut her off, eyes locking on hers. Grace, you started it, didn't you? The room froze. Grace blinked, caught off guard. I just mentioned that her trip seemed unusual. Damien leaned forward, both hands on the table, voice cold enough to make the air tremble. If I hear one more word of slander, HR will file a disciplinary report immediately. Westcorp will not tolerate character attacks, especially the kind targeting women in the workplace. A PR manager spoke up nervously, but Aurora is your subordinate. That's a complication. Damien looked around the table. Not anymore. The silence deepened. Effective today, Aurora Lane is being transferred to the strategy department. Higher role, higher pay, no longer under my direct supervision. Any personal relationship, if it exists, will therefore comply with corporate policy. Grace's composure cracked. You're doing this for her? Damien's voice was steady, unwavering. I'm doing this because it's right, and because I won't let anyone destroy the life or reputation of someone I care about. Grace's face drained of color. The meeting ended under the weight of his authority, heavy, final, immovable. Later that afternoon, Damien called Aurora into a small conference room. She looked terrified, clutching a folder to her chest. Are you firing me? Damien shook his head. He stepped closer, still keeping a respectful distance, though his gaze burned warm and steady. Aurora, you've been promoted. Her eyes widened. What? I've requested HR to move you to strategy. You deserve that role, not because I'm giving you anything, but because you're right for it. But the rumors are gone, he said firmly. No one will touch your name again. Aurora's voice trembled. You did that for me? Damien held her gaze, his tone deep and gentle. I did it because I care about you, and because I want you standing beside me, not behind me. Aurora's eyes shimmered, her heart softened, her breath catching. I don't know what to say. Damien smiled faintly, the rare, quiet kind of smile that made her heartbeat lose rhythm. Just tell me, if you want to keep walking this path with me. Aurora nodded, eyes glistening. And in that moment, no kiss was needed, no touch required. Just one look between them and both knew. Everything had just begun. New York at night looked like a movie had been switched to a warm golden mode. Streetlights, the saxophone of a street musician, the smell of pizza from a corner shop, all blended into the perfect soundtrack for the first date between an unpredictable CEO and the girl who caused an accident with a sandwich. Aurora sat cross-legged on Damien's sofa, tapping a wooden spoon on the pot like she was drumming in a band. Damien stood beside her with his arms crossed, frowning as if witnessing some ancient ritual. What are you doing? Creamy mushroom spaghetti. I thought you ordered food? Aurora flipped her hair. What do you take me for? I'm an amazing cook. Damien looked into the pot. The mixture of cream, mushrooms, onions, and something he couldn't identify was bubbling aggressively. That color is a little strange. Hey, it's a pretty color. A creative color. Damien laughed. He rarely laughed, but Aurora made him laugh every 10 minutes. A warm scent began to fill the apartment. When they ate, Damien's eyes widened. Aurora Lane, this is the best pasta I've ever had. She put her hands on her hips. See? Don't judge a woman's spaghetti by its appearance. I'm not judging with my eyes, I'm judging with my stomach. And my stomach is deeply in love with you? Aurora blushed but kept her cool. Want more? Yes, for the rest of my life. They both burst into laughter, and the penthouse suddenly felt less like a mansion and more like a cozy kitchen in a home. Saturday night, they walked along the apartment hallway. Aurora liked looking at other residents' potted plants. Damien followed simply because, somewhere along the way, following Aurora had become his habit. Then, thump, a loud meow echoed. The neighbor's cat, a chubby golden furball named Pumpkin, launched itself at Damien's legs. Damien froze like he'd been attacked by a wolf. Aurora, it's climbing me. Yes, it likes you. It is climbing me. Pumpkin climbed up his leg, then his thigh, then settled on his shoulder like it owned the place. Aurora doubled over, laughing uncontrollably. Oh my God, you look like a pirate with a cat instead of a parrot. Damien glared. I'm allergic to cats. Aurora tried to help, but Pumpkin clung to Damien even tighter. She laughed while prying it off. It loves you. I prefer love that doesn't involve claws. When Pumpkin was finally freed, Aurora was still giggling the entire walk. Damien watched her, hair drifting in the hallway breeze, smile bright enough to light the entire corridor, and wondered, why did he wait this long to let her into his life? The AMC Times Square Theater was packed. Aurora chose a romantic movie. Damien chose to endure it because it made her happy. Halfway through the film, Aurora pulled out a tissue, then another, wiped her eyes, sniffled. Damien glanced at her and sighed, yet loved her enough to smile at the same time. He leaned in and whispered, Need another tissue? Aurora sniff-sobbed, No, I'm fine. 30 seconds later, Huck. Damien reached into his coat and pulled out an entire pack of tissues, like a magician. Aurora stared. How did you know? You always cry at the 53-minute mark. You counted? No, I paid attention. Aurora took the pack, looking at him through the flickering theater lights. There are moments in life when people don't fall in love. They realize they've been in love for a while without knowing it. Aurora had that moment right there. in row D, center aisle. Eating ice cream in Central Park at 40 degrees Fahrenheit because Aurora said, ice cream tastes better when it's freezing. Damien is trying to learn how to ride a bike so he can go with Aurora. Fell twice, tore his pants once. Aurora is teaching Damien how to take proper Instagram boyfriend photos. Damien overacted so hard that Aurora fell onto the grass laughing. Damien took Aurora to a jazz bar where she sang along, off-key but so adorable that even the bartender smiled. Their love wasn't fiery or dramatic. It was soft, light, joyful, like morning sunlight through a window. Not perfect, but right. The night breeze was gentle, carrying the scent of cold river water and waffle cones from a nearby food truck. The two of them sat side by side on an old wooden bench, the city lights shimmering across the Hudson like glittering ribbons. Aurora pulled her legs up, wrapped in Damien's hoodie. Damien had his arms crossed, staring into the distance like he was contemplating life, though he was really just thinking about her. Aurora rested her head lightly, very lightly on his shoulder, enough to make his heartbeat skip. Damien! Hmm? Aurora watched the water. If what we're doing is wrong. Damien tilted his head to look at her. She gave a small smile, eyes sparkling like the lights reflecting off Jersey, whom then I choose wrong for the rest of my life. Damien went silent. Not because he hesitated, but because his heart had just fallen into his stomach and bounced back into his chest in the most Aurora way possible. He gently lifted her chin so she'd look at him. I've never been this right in my life. Aurora smiled, her eyes curving like silk ribbons. They kissed. A kiss not too wild, not too long. Just enough to confirm one thing. They were no longer enemies of circumstance. They were each other's fate. California in May had its own kind of sunlight, golden like honey, warm like a blanket dried in the sun, and by late afternoon it melted into a soft peach glow that felt like summer sighing. Aurora and Damien were in Monterey for what he called a stress relief weekend, but only Lauren, over FaceTime, knew the truth. Damien West, the CEO known for being stoic, precise, and rational as steel, was about to propose. Aurora had no idea. She thought he just wanted seafood. That evening, Lovers Point Beach was so beautiful it could have been printed on a travel poster. Gentle waves, a soft breeze, and a sky painted in shades of coral, pink, and lilac. Damien had prepared a setup worthy of a romantic movie, a low wooden table draped with white linen, a simple vase of baby's breath, 2 champagne glasses, a tiny speaker playing Aurora's favorite La La Land soundtrack, and a diamond ring tucked safely in the pocket of his linen jacket. He checked everything as if he were reviewing a $1 million contract. His hands trembled slightly. His hair was tousled by the breeze, but somehow it made him look even more like a magazine cover. He told himself silently, every line of my life used to be straight and perfect. Aurora is the only exception, and I like that more than any logic I've ever known. Aurora appeared, hair dancing in the wind, eyes lighting up at the sight. What's all this? A fancy picnic? Damien kept his cool. You could call it that. Aurora laughed, sipping champagne. I didn't say I wanted to be treated like a princess, but you really went all out. Damien swallowed hard. You're about to become my princess, he thought. After a few minutes of small talk, Damien stood up. His heart raced like he'd just sprinted a marathon. Aurora, can you stand for a moment? She raised an eyebrow. Why? Are we doing a sunset meditation ritual or something? No. Then Damien inhaled deeply, stepped in front of her, eyes soft and shining. Not the CEO she knew, but a man about to speak the biggest truth of his life. He reached into his jacket pocket, feeling the box, and began to kneel. Aurora's eyes widened. Damien? The ocean breeze whispered. The music swelled softly behind them. The sky glowed a perfect orange. Everything was cinematic dash dash, until dash dash. Woof, woof, woof! 2 corgis came charging out of nowhere like caffeinated rockets. One rammed straight into Damien, almost knocking him off balance. The other snatched the ring box from his hand and bolted. Aurora froze for 1 second, then collapsed into laughter. Oh my God, it took the ring! Damien shouted, panic lacing his voice. "Hey, come back! That's a $40,000 ring!" The corgi sprinted across the sand like an Olympian, the other bouncing behind Damien as if cheering. Aurora laughed so hard that tears streamed down her face. "You! Look! Ridiculous!" And he did. Damien West, immaculate CEO, in a white linen suit running full speed down the beach after two fluffy dogs. Hair flying was the most adorably chaotic sight imaginable. Joggers, tourists, and even a scuba instructor stopped to watch. One old lady called out laughing, "Catch it, honey, before it swallows the ring." After 3 minutes of pure slapstick chaos, Damien finally caught the corgi with the ring. He pried the box from its mouth, panting like he just fought a bear. His shirt was wrinkled, his pants covered in sand, and his hair looked electrocuted, but the box was safe. Aurora was still laughing uncontrollably, tears glistening on her cheeks. She ran over, taking the box from his hand, ruffling his hair. "Are you okay?" Damien exhaled heavily. "No, my heart nearly stopped. Partly because of you, and partly because of those little demons." Aurora laughed harder, clutching her stomach. He straightened up, meeting her gaze. And suddenly the mess, the sand, the embarrassment, none of it mattered. There was only Aurora dash dash. The woman who made him run, made him laugh, made him feel alive in a way no boardroom ever could. He took her hand. Damien drew in a breath. He didn't need perfection anymore. He just needed her. This time he knelt again, right there on the sand. No bouquet, no champagne, no script. Just two hearts under a sunset. "Aurora!" His voice was a little rough from running, but every word was real. "You've completely wrecked my perfectly logical life since the day you threw a sandwich at my head." Aurora snorted, covering her mouth with a laugh. Damien opened the box, the oval diamond catching the last rays of the California sun. "So I'm asking you," he swallowed, eyes never leaving hers. "To wreck it again." Then softly, "Marry me." Aurora froze for 3 seconds, her eyes shining. Then her voice broke, trembling through a laugh. "Damien." Tears filled her lashes. "I've been planning to ruin your life for a while now." She nodded, hard, breathless, laughing and crying at once. "Yes, of course. Yes." Damien stood and pulled her into his arms. The ocean wind tangled their hair together. The sunset drenched them both in a molten glow of gold and fire. Aurora laughed through her tears. What if the corgi had swallowed the ring? Damien rested his forehead against hers. "Then I'd still kneel. Rings can be replaced." "You can't." Aurora held him tighter. And on that California beach, where the salty wind carried their laughter and the fading sun wrapped them in warmth, they both knew. This wasn't just a proposal, it was the beginning of forever. The California coast at sunset looked like a postcard someone had gently brushed with a love story filter. The sun dipped low along the horizon, stretching bands of orange-pink gold across the water. The waves were soft, the breeze cool enough to lift a bride's hair, but not strong enough to ruin her hairstyle. The scent of sea salt, mixed with the fragrance of white flowers, hung around the ceremony arch, creating an aroma that was both wild and tender. A small sandy terrace had been decorated simply but breathtakingly. Wooden chairs in 2 neat rows, draped with white cloth and sprigs of baby's breath. A pathway of sand sprinkled with seashells and white rose petals. A minimalist wooden arch wrapped in voile and fresh flowers, facing the ocean. Aurora stood behind a temporary white curtain, holding a bouquet of white peonies with blush pink centers, her heart thumping like she was about to run a 100-meter race, not get married. Lauren stood beside her, eyes already red even though the ceremony hadn't begun. "Are you okay?" Aurora whispered. Lauren dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "No, but also yes. I've been crying since the moment you tried on your dress." Aurora laughed and looked down at her gown. A lightweight satin A-line dress, no long dramatic train, a soft sweetheart neckline, a subtle open back, simple but elegant. Not the princess type, but the type that said, "The girl who dropped a sandwich on her CEO is now marrying him under the sunset." Lauren took a deep breath and squeezed Aurora's hand. "Hey." "What?" "If you change your mind out there, Warn me first so I don't faceplant from the shock. Aurora giggled. I'm not changing my mind. She peeked through the curtain and saw Damien standing beneath the wedding arch, facing the ocean. He wore a navy suit, crisp white shirt, a thin silk tie to match. His face was serious, but in the corner of his eyes was a light meant for one person only. And that person was her. Aurora swallowed. I've never been this sure in my entire life. Lauren laughed through her tears. Good, because I spent way too much money on waterproof mascara. Music drifted across the sand, an acoustic version of Can't Help Falling in Love. Guests turned. Aurora stepped barefoot onto the sand. She wanted to feel the ocean beneath her feet, to remember that this was real, not a dream. No one walked her down the aisle. She had said very clearly, I don't want anyone giving me away. I'm choosing him, and I'm walking to him on my own feet. When Damien heard that, he loved her one layer deeper. As Aurora approached, he finally turned and couldn't stop himself from smiling. Not the CEO smile, but one so bright even the sunset might have felt jealous. Aurora smiled back. On her chair, Lauren was already crying like an emoji. Aurora reached the arch and faced Damien. Waves lapped gently behind them. The sky deepened into honey gold. The officiant said something about love, about choices, about two strangers who collided because of a sandwich. Someone snickered. Aurora barely heard anything. All she could focus on were Damien's eyes, his hands holding hers, and the strange, overwhelming calm she felt. Then came the rings. The officiant smiled. The rings, please. Lauren inhaled deeply, stepping forward with a small box that looked like a national treasure. Everything went smoothly. Until Damien's simple wedding band, Aurora was holding his ring, he was holding hers, was lifted by Lauren's trembling hand and slipped from her fingers. Plink. The ring fell into the sand. The entire ceremony froze for 0.5 seconds. Then laughter erupted. Lauren's eyes went wide. Oh my God, I did it again! Last time, a corgi stole the ring. This time, the maid of honor dropped it. Aurora doubled over laughing. Damien looked down at the sand and knelt. Again. He carefully sifted through the sand. Lauren knelt beside him in panic. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Who lets me be in weddings? Damien found the ring, brushed it off, looked up, and smiled at Aurora. I think this is our tradition now. The ring never comes easily. The guests burst into louder laughter. Lauren stood, face red but eyes shimmering with joy. If you two ever divorce because I dropped the ring, I'll never forgive myself. Aurora hugged her quickly before returning to the ceremony. Damien took the ring and held Aurora's left hand. The officiant said, Damien, would you like to say something to Aurora? Damien looked into her eyes, voice deep and warm. Thank you for that sandwich. The guests roared with laughter. Lauren shouted, Amen! Damien leaned in slightly, lowering his voice so only Aurora could hear. Thank you for entering my life in the messiest way possible and staying in the gentlest way possible. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a white gold band, simple, fitting Aurora's ring finger like it was born to be hers. Then came Aurora's turn. She held his ring, hands shaking. Thank you for not making me pay $4,000 for that suit. Laughter again. Then she softened her voice, looking at him with warm seriousness. And thank you, because from that day until today, you've never once let go of my hand. She slid the ring onto his finger. Damien's fingers, long, warm, closed around hers. The ring fit perfectly, like they did. The officiant smiled brightly. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Damien, you may kiss your bride. Damien didn't wait for a second invitation. He pulled Aurora gently into his arms, one hand at her back, and kissed her. Not a dramatic, movie-ending kiss. Not a wild, fiery one. A warm, steady kiss between two people who had survived enough chaos, misunderstandings, and fear, and still chose each other, a kiss full of promise. Behind them, the waves applauded in soft rhythms. Lauren sobbed loudly. I knew it. I told everyone since the sandwich day. The guests laughed, clapped, and someone even whistled. Damien pulled away slightly but kept Aurora in his arms. He whispered, "Mrs. West." Aurora smiled, eyes sparkling. "Aurora Lane West. Sounds pretty good." "Sounds perfect." The reception afterward had only a few dozen people. Family, close friends, and a handful of trusted coworkers. No press, no reporters, no extravagant spectacle. Just a long white table, fairy lights strung between wooden poles, soft music, wine, and good simple food. Grace wasn't there. Not because she wasn't invited, but because she understood this wasn't her place. Lauren made a speech, still sniffling. "I witnessed the day Aurora dropped a sandwich on her boss's head, and I swear I thought they'd get sued, not end up married." Laughter erupted. Lauren raised her glass. "So, here's proof that the worst part of your day can sometimes be the start of the best thing in your life." Damien looked at Aurora with quiet gratitude. Aurora looked at him like he was her whole universe. They clinked glasses. Lights twinkled overhead. After the party, when guests had begun to leave, the two walked along the shoreline barefoot, fingers intertwined. Waves licked at their feet above them, a few stars blurred behind coastal lights, but still visible. Aurora rested her head on Damien's shoulder. "You know something? I'm not promising I'll always do everything right." Damien chuckled. "I'm absolutely sure you won't. I'm not promising I'll stop spilling food or stop embarrassing you in public. You definitely shouldn't promise that. I find it very characteristic of my wife." Aurora laughed, squeezing his hand. "But I promise, every day I wake up, I'll choose you. Even on the days you're so annoyed with me you want to scream. Even on the days I'm scared. I'll still choose. Working through it together, not running." Damien stopped walking and faced her. In the soft glow of distant lights, his eyes were unusually warm. "I won't promise I'll never be wrong." Aurora raised an eyebrow. "You? Wrong? I'm human, not a robot. I know. Shocking." She laughed. Damien took both her hands, voice deep but gentle. "I only promise that even if I forget my umbrella, forget an email, forget my morning coffee, I won't forget to come home to you." Aurora felt tears sting her eyes. Among the sound of waves, the breeze, and the soft flutter of voile from the ceremony arch behind them, the two former enemies, the girl who had thrown a sandwich, and the man who had demanded $4,000 and were now husband and wife. Not a perfect fairy tale, but a happiness born from a silly accident, a kiss that shouldn't have happened, and two people who decided that no matter what, they would keep choosing each other. Tomorrow, and every day after that, like a promise without an expiration date.